Most old American mansions begin their stories with life. This one began with death. Lemp Mansion in St. Louis became a place where tragedy didn't just strike. It continued, as if passed down through the family, like an inheritance no one wanted. 4 suicides within the same house are rare even in crime history. But something else makes this place different. After each death, neighbors reported the same things. Footsteps in the empty halls, a shadow standing in the office window, and faint voices coming from the attic, where a hidden child was said to have lived. Over the years, the house hasn't grown quieter. If anything, the silence has become louder, and everyone who walks inside eventually stops in the exact rooms where each life ended, because they feel they're not standing there alone. Before we continue, I'd appreciate your subscription. Now, let's return to the story. Lemp Mansion was never an ordinary family home. It was built for one of St. Louis's most powerful families, the Lemps, owners of a multi-million-dollar brewery. But even during construction, workers who stayed late reported unusual things. Sudden drops in temperature inside empty rooms, dull knocks coming from the attic, footsteps behind them when no one else was in the house. At first, these incidents were dismissed as fatigue. Once the Lemps moved in, the mansion looked perfect, grand, decorative, a symbol of wealth. But within the first months, the staff began complaining about strange noises at night. Short, quick footsteps in the hallway, the floor creaking in the office, and a rhythmic tapping, as if someone was deliberately knocking on a door frame. William Lemp Sr. forbade his employees from discussing any of it. Not long after, neighbors noticed things too. Late at night, a light would appear in the windows, even though the family was asleep. Quiet voices were heard in the garden, as if 2 people were arguing, but no one was ever there. The most unsettling reports came from passers-by, who claimed they had seen a tall figure standing motionless in an upper-floor window, watching the street in complete silence. At the time, these events seemed insignificant. The Lemp family was far too wealthy to attribute anything to superstition or the paranormal. But everything changed when their beloved son, Frederick, suddenly died in 1901. After that, the mansion seemed to shift. Hallways grew colder. Servants quit without explanation, and the head of the family looked drained, as if something inside the house was quietly wearing him down. Many would later say that Frederick's death was the first fracture, and that the house had simply been waiting for the moment to break open completely. The death of Frederick Lemp in 1901 was the event that fractured the family from within. He was young, healthy, and expected to inherit the brewing empire. He was the favorite of his father, the future face of the company, and the one on whom the family placed all hopes. His sudden illness and rapid decline shocked not only the Lemps, but all of St. Louis. The official cause was a heart attack. Unofficially, people whispered about exhaustion, stress, even fear. Those who knew Frederick claimed he had begun avoiding the mansion in the months before his death, as if the place weighed on him. After the funeral, something in the house shifted. Servants reported that the second floor, where Frederick spent most of his time, felt unnaturally cold, even with every window locked. At night, quiet pacing sounds came from his old room, and in the mornings, small objects on his desk appeared to have been moved. No one admitted touching them. William Lemp Sr. refused to acknowledge anything unusual, but his behavior changed. He spent long hours in his office, often sitting there without turning on the light. Neighbors later recalled that sometimes a dim glow appeared in the window of that office late at night, with a motionless figure standing inside. Some were convinced that the silhouette was not William. Strange noises began coming from the basement as well. Dull, metallic thuds, like someone dragging heavy brewery barrels across the floor. But the underground passage to the old brewery was sealed, and no one worked there after hours. Workers who entered the basement during the day described a sharp drop in temperature and a trembling sensation in the air, as if an unseen wave passed by them. All of this could have been dismissed as grief, imagination, or coincidence. But after Frederick's death, William Lemp deteriorated rapidly, and many believed the house reacted to the loss as if it were its own. It was the moment when the mansion seemed to awaken, quietly, steadily. And from that point on, no one who stepped inside felt truly alone again. After Frederick's death, William Lemp Sr.'s behavior changed so drastically that everyone who entered the mansion noticed it. A man who once ran one of the largest breweries in America seemed to lose interest in everything: the business, his family, and eventually himself. He spent most of his days shut inside his office, a dark-paneled room with heavy curtains and an old desk where he would sit for hours, motionless. Servants said that sometimes, while passing the door, they heard a faint whisper, as if William was speaking to someone, though he was always alone. Others claimed that inside the office, two shadows could sometimes be seen. One clearly his, and a second slightly longer, standing just behind him at a strange angle. Many refused to enter the room, even during daylight. On February 11th, 1904, a gunshot echoed from behind the locked office door. When the servants forced their way in, they found William Sr. seated in his chair, a revolver still in his hand. The door had been locked from the inside. The investigation was brief. Officially, suicide. Unofficially, another fracture in a family already breaking apart as rapidly as their brewery was declining. But the strangest part was what came after his death. Future residents, relatives, and even visitors all reported the same thing. The office felt heavier, as if the air inside had thickened. When the lights were off, a dark figure could sometimes be seen standing near the window, the same spot where William had sat moments before, pulling the trigger. At night, dull thumps came from the room, like slow footsteps or the sound of furniture being dragged across the floor. Several modern tour guides who worked in the mansion described a sharp drop in temperature inside the office, cold enough to feel like stepping into a basement. One guide claimed he saw a brief flash of light in the exact corner where William's chair once stood. The gunshot did more than end a life. It left an imprint on the room, something that settled into the walls and never left. The story of the Lemp family's hidden child was whispered about for decades. There are no official records, yet nearly everyone in St. Louis knew the rumor. The Lemps had a boy born with severe disabilities, a child they never showed in public. He was supposedly kept in a small attic room, reachable by a narrow, almost concealed staircase. Later, locals would call it the Monkey Boy Room. Neighbors from that time recalled warm summer evenings when faint crying, or, at times, muffled laughter, drifted down from the top floor. But whenever the servants went upstairs to check, the room was silent and empty. Most believed the child lived only a short life. No one knew exactly when he died, only that he had never stepped beyond the walls of the mansion. After Charles Lemp's death in 1949, when the house stood empty, the strange noises from the attic became more frequent. At night, neighbors heard light, hurried footsteps, too quick and too small to belong to an adult, running back and forth. Sometimes a soft knocking echoed through the ventilation grates, as if a small hand was tapping against the wooden walls. When the property eventually changed owners and the attic was open for the first time in decades, several unsettling details emerged. There was a worn patch on the floor, a faint circular path, as though someone had paced the same track every day for years. In one corner stood an old child's bed, untouched for decades according to restorers. The entire room was noticeably colder than the rest of the mansion, even during the heat of summer. Paranormal investigators who later examined Lemp Mansion reported that during EVP sessions in the attic, they repeatedly captured a soft whisper, quick, shallow breaths resembling those of a frightened child. One investigator claimed he felt a light tug on his sleeve while standing beside the small bed, though no one else was in the room. Some say old houses retain echoes of their past, but in the attic of the Lemp Mansion, it feels like something more than an echo remained, a presence that never knew any life outside those narrow walls. After the death of William Lemp Sr., the mansion entered a period where tragedies began repeating with unsettling regularity. The next was Elsa Lemp, the family's only daughter. In 1920, she was found dead in her own home. Officially, suicide. Unofficially, a case full of contradictions. Neighbors reported hearing a sharp cry moments before, and the physician who examined her body noted how abrupt and unexplained her death seemed. Even today, historians argue whether Elsa truly took her own life or whether something else happened that morning. 2 years later, in 1922, tragedy returned directly to the Lemp Mansion. William Lemp Jr., who had inherited the brewery, ended his life in his upstairs bedroom. In the months before his death, his behavior grew increasingly erratic. He avoided visitors, stayed inside with the curtains drawn, and complained of a presence in the hallway that wouldn't let him sleep. Servants later recalled hearing soft footsteps pacing beside his bed late at night. But whenever they checked, the room was silent, and William sat alone in the dark. The final death came in 1949. Charles Lemp lived in the mansion by himself, with only his dog for company. Reclusive and withdrawn, he had almost no contact with anyone. One morning, he was found dead in his bedroom, along with the dog he had shot moments earlier. On the table lay a short note, "In case I am found." With his death, the mansion was finally sealed off, left empty for years. People who walked past during that period spoke of a strange impression. Even abandoned, without lights or residents, the mansion looked alive. Some nights, a faint glow appeared in the windows, and on the second floor, a still, solitary silhouette was seen, standing exactly where Charles died. By the time the third suicide struck, it was clear that tragedy in this house wasn't an accident. It had become part of the mansion's identity. The basement of Lemp Mansion has long been considered the most unsettling part of the entire house. Decades ago, it connected directly to the Lemp Brewery through a network of underground tunnels used to move barrels and equipment. Once the brewery declined, the tunnels were sealed. But from that moment on, the basement became the source of strange and persistent activity. The first reports came from cleaning staff. They described a deep metallic thud, as if a heavy barrel was being rolled across the floor. Even though no such objects had been stored there for years, others heard short, low male phrases, too muffled to understand, but spoken in a calm, deliberate tone, as though someone was giving instructions. A few mentioned a sharp whistle echoing briefly through the darkness. In the 1970s, when the mansion was converted into a restaurant, employees began avoiding the basement altogether. Waiters felt sudden shifts of air behind them, as if someone walked past at close range. Kitchen staff said the lights flickered whenever they approached the old blocked passage. The most common complaint was the temperature. A sudden drop so intense that condensation formed on the refrigerators, even during warm seasons. Paranormal teams later confirmed unusual activity concentrated in this part of the house. Audio recordings captured slow footsteps, abrupt bangs, and short bursts of heavy breathing. One investigator claimed he heard a sound identical to the dragging of a metal barrel. The same echoing vibration that once filled the tunnels decades earlier. Thermal cameras recorded moving cold spots sliding along the walls, despite the absence of drafts. The most disturbing moment occurred near the sealed tunnel entrance. During an EVP session, the microphone picked up a faint whisper. Two members of the team heard it clearly. A quiet voice saying, "Still here." After that, the basement earned its reputation as the place where the past never goes silent. And no one was willing to spend much time down there alone. Despite renovations, restaurant guests, and daily tours, Lemp Mansion never stopped showing the same disturbing signs that made it one of the most haunted homes in America. Modern witnesses, tourists, staff, investigators consistently report the same phenomena, even when they know nothing about the family's history. The most common reports involve shadows. In the long upstairs hallway, visitors often see a tall, dark figure standing silently against the wall before vanishing as if cut out of the air. Many describe it as a man in a dark suit, uncannily similar to photographs of William Lemp Sr. in the rooms where the suicides took place. People speak of a sudden, oppressive cold. Guests entering William Jr.'s bedroom often leave within seconds, saying they felt someone standing behind them or watching from the corner. Some discover thin scratches on their arms or feel a sharp tingling on their shoulders, like a quick, unwanted touch. Restaurant employees learn to avoid the second floor after 10 p.m. That's when the footsteps begin. Heavy, deliberate steps, pacing back and forth, as if someone is anxiously walking the length of the hallway. But when staff members go upstairs to check, they find the corridor empty and the floor perfectly still. Paranormal teams have recorded short, emotionless voices, clipped phrases captured on EVP sessions. Go back. Stop. Leave. Thermal cameras occasionally pick up small, moving cold spots, traveling through rooms on a clear path, resembling the movement of an invisible person. The most unsettling event occurred during a private tour. A group of 6 people witnessed a door on the top floor slowly swing open and then gently return to its frame, even though there was no draft in the building and the hinges had been inspected earlier the same day. Lemp Mansion no longer hides what it is. Some houses keep their history quiet. This one continues to live through it, even when no living person is in the room. Today, the Lemp Mansion stands as a reminder that some houses hold more than history. Here, tragedy wasn't an accident, it was a sequence. From Frederick's death to Charles's final gunshot, the Lemp family seemed to move along a path already laid out, and each loss settled deeper into the structure of the home. Looking back at everything that happened inside these walls, one thing becomes clear. The Lemp Mansion isn't just a place where people died. It is a house that witnessed the collapse of a dynasty and absorbed everything they left behind. Loneliness, fear, despair. All of it feels woven into the wood and stone as tightly as the nails that hold them together.